Greetings, lone wolves. Some men were never built for the leash. They weren't born to blend in, they were born to remember. In a world where 99% are chasing digital approval, snapping selfies and begging for likes, there's a rare kind of man walking the opposite path. He's not adding noise, he's stripping it away. He's not chasing trends, he's following the quiet echoes of something ancient, something the world tried to erase. This isn't about mysticism, cults, or conspiracy theories. This is about what happens when a Sigma male reawakens a forgotten inner operating system, one forged not through obedience, but through solitude, self-mastery, and dangerous clarity. Behavioral psychologists estimate that less than 2% of men naturally operate outside the standard dominance hierarchies. But what no study ever captures is what happens when these men go quiet. When they vanish from the world for a while, they're not lost. They're reprogramming. They're loading the ancient code. And when that code is activated, they don't return to fit in. They return to reshape reality. So before you scroll off to check your notifications, ask yourself this. What happens when a man no longer needs permission to feel powerful? That's when you meet the Sigma. And his ancient code? It's already waking up. Let's break it down. Number 1, they stop debating morality and start living power. Most people are stuck in endless debates about what's right or wrong, paralyzed by opinions, social scripts, and second-hand philosophies. Sigma males don't play that game. When the ancient code activates, they stop treating morality like a group project. They realize most moral frameworks are polite cages, built to keep dangerous men tame and useful. So instead of asking, is this good or bad? A Sigma asks, does this serve my values, my vision, and the future I'm building? No public vote. No philosophical roundtable. Just brutal alignment with his internal compass. This isn't about being reckless or heartless. It's about realizing that every man lives in a system, either one he was programmed into, or one he built himself. Sigma males build their own. That's why they're willing to step into moral gray areas, not with confusion, but with clarity. Because while others argue about the rules, Sigmas rewrite them in real time. They understand that in the real world, the most powerful moves never come from asking permission. They come from owning the consequences. Leadership, loyalty, revenge, mercy, silence, all of it lives in the gray. And if you're not comfortable making moves in that space, you'll always be ruled by someone who is. Sigma males don't moralize. They mobilize. They measure their actions against their mission, not the mood of the internet. If a move strengthens their foundation, sharpens their path, or protects their tribe, they act. If not, they cut it. No drama. No guilt. Just motion. That's what makes them so unpredictable. You can't guilt them. You can't shame them. You can't trap them in moral chess games. They've unplugged from that script. They're not trying to win arguments. They're trying to win territory, time, and truth. Sigma males don't live by default ethics. They live by custom-built codes, not because they think they're above others, but because they know the system was never designed for men like them. Number 2, they initiate controlled ego deconstruction to avoid delusion. Most men run from their flaws, or hide behind them. Sigma males do the opposite, they turn their flaws into fuel. When the ancient code within them activates, one of the first things they do is systematically break down their own ego. Not to become weak or passive, but to ensure they never lie to themselves. They understand that self-delusion is the fastest way to die while still breathing. So instead of waiting for life to humble them, they humble themselves, on purpose. This process isn't gentle. They go deep into their own minds and start pulling things apart, like a combat engineer dismantling a live bomb. What do they truly suck at? Which habits are keeping them soft? Which victories made them lazy? They ask themselves the questions most men avoid, and if the answers hurt, even better. Because pain sharpens truth. They strip away every layer of fake confidence, perform a brutal self-audit, and destroy anything inside them built on fear, vanity, or comfort. And then comes the next phase, reconstruction. Sigma males don't tear themselves down for fun. They rebuild, with discipline, focus, and absolute control. If a weakness is exposed, they train it until it's no longer a threat. If their ego's been feeding them lies, they replace it with clear, ruthless awareness. When they re-emerge, they seem untouchable, not because they think they're flawless, but because they've already faced their worst, and didn't flinch. That's what separates Sigma males from the fragile confidence of surface-level alpha types. They don't need applause to feel strong, they've already challenged themselves in the dark and survived. So when conflict comes, or someone tries to insult them, it doesn't land. Not because they're immune, but because they've already punched themselves harder than the world ever could. Controlled ego deconstruction is their secret weapon. While most men build castles around their pride and pray no one breaks in, Sigmas? They burn the castle down, walk through the ashes, and come back wearing armor forged in the fire. They don't fear collapse, because they've already collapsed and rebuilt. Number 3, they reject language designed to castrate power. Sigma males don't just question what they're told, they question how it's told. When their code activates, they become sharply aware of the manipulative language used to neutralize strong men. Words like overthinking, ego, too intense, too cold, toxic masculinity. These aren't harmless labels. They're psychological sedatives, designed to dull sharp edges and domesticate dangerous minds. Sigma males spit them out like poison. They see that overthinking is used to shame deep strategy. Ego is weaponized against confidence that doesn't come wrapped in smiles. Toxic is the go-to word when someone can't control a powerful man, so they try to label him instead. But the Sigma doesn't buy it. He sees through the soft censorship. He reclaims language, not to argue, but to protect clarity. When someone says, "You're overthinking," the Sigma hears, "You're thinking deeper than I can handle." When they say, "That's your ego," he hears, "You're not afraid to own your worth, and I am." When they say, "Toxic," he knows, they're just uncomfortable with his self-containment. This isn't about becoming emotionally numb. It's about recognizing that language shapes identity, and most men absorb subtle attacks without realizing it. Sigma males don't. They deconstruct every word aimed at their core. They strip it of its manipulative power and redefine it on their own terms. Over time, even their speech changes. Fewer apologies. Cleaner words. No filler. No fake softness to make others feel safe. Their vocabulary becomes lean, sharp, and unshakable. Every word now serves their mission, not someone else's comfort. When a Sigma reclaims language, he reclaims control over his own mind. And once that happens, you can't guilt him. You can't shame him. You can't trick him back into submission. Because the code has made him fluent in the most dangerous dialect there is. Truth, without fear. Number 4, they become fluent in their own energy field. Most people walk into a room and absorb the energy. Sigma males? They shape it. When the ancient code activates, a Sigma stops being unaware of his presence, he becomes fluent in it. He begins to notice how his mere presence stirs others, not arrogantly, but with surgical awareness. He studies every micro-reaction, the shift in posture, the flicker in someone's eyes, the subtle change in tone when he enters the space. He doesn't just feel energy, he reads it like a second language. And once he understands how his presence lands, he starts calibrating it with intention. He tests how stillness creates tension. He observes how silence increases authority. He manipulates eye contact, posture, and tone like an artist shaping atmosphere. At this stage, his silence isn't passive, it's weaponized. People feel something around him they can't explain. Some feel nervous. Others feel challenged. The more self-aware feel exposed. Why? Because the Sigma doesn't emit the usual signals of neediness or submission. He radiates intent, and people feel it in their gut before he even speaks. This isn't mystical fluff. It's neural discipline. He's trained his nervous system to stop leaking scattered energy. Every movement, every pause, every word is clean, contained, and loaded with meaning. That's why others instinctively respect him, even if they can't explain why. That's why manipulators instinctively avoid him, because he can't be pulled or pushed. While most men chase approval, the Sigma becomes a walking boundary, a silent force that signals, "I know who I am. I know what I want. And I don't need your permission to exist here." He doesn't demand space. He becomes it. Number 5, they learn to manipulate their own dopamine to avoid external addiction. Most men are dopamine addicts and don't even realize it. They chase likes, scroll endlessly, binge entertainment, and reward themselves for doing the bare minimum. Sigma males do something radically different. When the ancient code activates, they hijack their own reward system. They stop letting the world drip-feed them cheap pleasure and start engineering their dopamine to serve their long game. It starts when they realize how controlled they've been by invisible triggers. The instant gratification loop isn't just a bad habit, it's a design trap. Notifications, junk food, porn, meaningless praise, all of it creates fake wins. And every time a man accepts those, he trains his brain to avoid the real challenges that would make him powerful. So the Sigma makes a sharp turn. He doesn't just quit distractions, he rewires his response to them. That means training his brain to crave what actually strengthens him, long hours of focus, intense discipline, the high of saying no when it's easier to give in. He starts getting dopamine from finishing the book instead of starting it, from keeping his mouth shut instead of winning the argument, from building something no one sees, yet. He creates his own feedback loop, one where internal wins replace external validation. Where hitting the gym consistently feels better than chasing another forgettable hookup. where strategic silence feels better than online applause. Over time, his brain adapts. He no longer needs the constant hits that keep most men mentally enslaved. He starts to feel addicted to his own growth. And that's not a metaphor. This shift is rare. Almost no one does it because it requires brutal honesty about what's stealing your strength. But the Sigma doesn't just want control, he wants sovereignty. And that only comes when you control the chemistry driving your daily choices. By mastering his own dopamine, he doesn't just become disciplined, he becomes dangerously focused. And while most men are still trapped chasing comfort and stimulation, the Sigma is quietly becoming unstoppable, because now, even his brain is loyal to his mission. Number 6, they train in reverse, learning to forget what's useless. Most people believe that the more you know, the smarter you become, that more information equals more power. Sigma males see through this illusion. When the ancient code within them activates, they don't rush to consume more, they start shedding. Not because they're anti-knowledge, but because they understand a deeper truth: real power comes from clarity, not clutter. While the average man drowns in articles, podcasts, opinions, and endless hot takes, the Sigma begins a process that feels backward to the rest of the world. He trains in reverse. He studies himself like a system overloaded with useless code and starts deleting outdated beliefs, hand-me-down morals, second-hand fears, and inherited goals. Gone. He doesn't just question what he knows, he questions why he knows it. Who gave him that idea? What system planted that rule? Does it actually serve him, or does it just make him easier to manage? This reverse training is ruthless. It's not about gaining, it's about unlearning. And it's surgical. The Sigma discards any information that doesn't translate into clarity, effectiveness, or deeper insight. He doesn't care about sounding smart, he cares about being mentally agile. While others are choking on data they'll never use, he slices through life with a sharpened mind. This is what makes him different. By removing what doesn't serve him, he becomes faster, cleaner, more precise. His decisions carry more weight because they aren't based on 10 conflicting opinions. His focus becomes lethal because it isn't being pulled in 100 directions. He doesn't need to know everything, he just needs to know what matters. And that's a superpower in a world obsessed with hoarding mental noise. Even emotionally, he declutters. He forgets what people expect him to care about. He forgets the shame he was taught to feel. He forgets the stories that made him smaller. This mental deletion makes him feel lighter, but not emptier. It makes room for something deeper: original thought, personal truth, and clean intuition. Sigma males don't evolve by downloading more. They evolve by deleting what keeps them domesticated. The ancient code doesn't ask them to learn everything, it demands they remember who they were before the world taught them who to be. Number 7, they feel death in every moment, and use it as fuel. The Sigma doesn't romanticize death. He doesn't need poetry or philosophy to understand it. He feels it, raw, close, real, like a silent countdown always ticking in the background. While most men avoid the thought of dying, the Sigma walks with it in his pocket like a weapon. Not to scare himself, but to stay sharp. When the code activates, it wipes away the illusion of later. The Sigma stops saying, "I'll get to it." He knows that every time he stalls, the clock punishes him. Every excuse is time gone. Every distraction is momentum lost. The awareness of death doesn't paralyze him. It obsesses him, with motion, with impact, with precision. That's why Sigmas often seem intense, even when they're quiet. They're not rushing, but they're moving. Every move has weight. Every day is a battlefield against stagnation. They don't need external motivation. They're fueled by the knowledge that this ride ends. That one day, all the potential people see in them will be meaningless, if it wasn't used. This doesn't make them miserable. It makes them dangerously focused. While others waste time trying to feel immortal, the Sigma feels his mortality like a burn. And that fire pushes him to extract every ounce of meaning from his day. Not in some sentimental way, but in brutal execution. He doesn't fear death. He fears regret. That's why he works while others scroll, trains while others sleep in, thinks deeply while others coast. Because he knows time doesn't care how busy you were. Time doesn't hand out credit for potential. Time erases. And the Sigma is one of the few men who actually lives like that's true. He doesn't need to be reminded to stay hungry, death already whispers it every hour. And while most men run from that voice, the Sigma sharpens his blade to it. Every second he hesitates, the sand drains faster. So he doesn't. He acts. He cuts. He builds. And he does it all with the calm, cold understanding that one day, none of this will be possible. That's why now, everything matters. Number 8, they start seeing through language, not just hearing it. Most people listen to words like their gospel. Sigma males listen through them. When the ancient code switches on, their ears aren't just picking up sounds, they're decoding intention. They begin to hear the part of someone's message that even that person isn't fully aware of, the subtle hesitation before a compliment, the drop in tone when someone says they're fine, the too careful phrasing that screams insecurity. To the untrained ear, it's nothing. To a Sigma, it's a data mine. Because he's not just processing language, he's scanning for patterns, distortions, emotional leaks. Words to him are just the surface layer. What he's tuned into is the signal underneath. The guilt someone's trying to hide, the neediness tucked behind fake confidence, the micro-panic inside someone's joke. He hears it all. And what makes this terrifying for others is that he doesn't react with drama. He doesn't call it out or weaponize it. He just stores it, quietly, precisely, like a sniper memorizing wind speed. While most people are charmed by a slick story or distracted by emotional packaging, the Sigma is calmly mapping the terrain beneath it. That's why people often feel unnerved around him even when he's polite, because deep down, they sense he sees what they're not saying. This isn't about being cynical or overly analytical. It's about being fluent in truth signals. The code teaches him that most people are emotionally lazy with their language, and most lies aren't spoken. They're leaked. And once he learns to read the emotional accent behind the words, he's almost impossible to manipulate. That's also why a Sigma doesn't waste time arguing. If someone's words and energy don't match, he already knows which one is real. While others debate the sentence, he's responding to the subtext. It makes him unnervingly accurate in conversations, quick to spot weakness, impossible to gaslight, and highly persuasive because he knows exactly which emotional wire to touch. At that level, language stops being a barrier. It becomes a tool, a map, a weapon. And the Sigma, he walks through every sentence like a surgeon with X-ray vision, cutting past the noise straight to the pulse. Number 9. They cut chord after chord until they're only plugged into purpose. When the ancient code fully kicks in, the Sigma male begins a ruthless, silent process of emotional disconnection. Not out of bitterness or rebellion, but because he can no longer afford to stay plugged into anything that drains him. This includes everything from childhood guilt to performative friendships, to outdated social rituals designed to keep him emotionally docile. He cuts cords, one by one. Quietly. No drama. No long speeches. If a relationship is built on guilt, it's gone. If a friendship survives only through mutual mediocrity, it's done. If an obligation exists only to maintain someone else's illusion of closeness, it gets severed. The Sigma reaches a point where maintaining others' comfort starts to feel like spiritual suffocation. He's not heartless. He's focused. His time, energy, and attention become sacred. Every entanglement gets scanned. Does this align with my mission? Does it energize or drain me? Is this love, or emotional taxation dressed in social expectation? When the answer doesn't serve his evolution, he walks. No guilt. No farewell tour. Just exit velocity. That's why people say the Sigma disappeared. He didn't. He just refused to remain emotionally rented by people who never invested in his growth. What remains is a man plugged into one thing, purpose. He no longer lives in emotional debt to other people's needs, fears, or illusions. This kind of purity is rare. Because it costs you everything fake. It's lonely. It's intense. But it's real. That's why Sigma males often appear cold or detached. But they're not detached, they're precise. Their emotional system has been rewired to serve one thing, inner alignment. Not approval. Not tradition. Not loyalty to dysfunction. They don't just protect their peace. They purify it. And once that purification is complete, what's left is terrifying to the average man, a male completely unplugged from weakness and permanently wired into mission. Number 10, they are drawn to symbols that speak to power without permission. When the Sigma code comes online, something unusual begins to happen. Sigma males become magnetized to symbols that most people overlook, old, primal things that don't seek validation. Ancient runes, Spartan carvings, warrior glyphs, cryptic alphabets etched into stone, and architectural designs echoing raw symmetry and brutal elegance. These symbols aren't just aesthetically pleasing, they speak directly to something ancient within the Sigma, something untouched by modern shame. It's not about nostalgia. It's about recognition. These relics and forgotten codes carry a kind of authority that was never voted on or approved by social media. The Sigma male doesn't chase these symbols consciously. He stumbles upon them, and they hit him like a frequency he didn't know he could hear. There's no fanfare, no speech, no flashy marketing, just the silent roar of pre-modern power. Power that didn't ask for permission to exist. Power that wasn't yet labeled toxic. Deep down, the Sigma knows that real strength was never meant to be polite. Ancient strength wasn't sanitized for comfort or diluted by consensus. It stood. It built. It conquered. And it never apologized for existing. These symbols are echoes from that age, a time when discipline, force, and focus were not shamed into silence. That's why Sigma males don't resonate with modern motivational posters or feel-good affirmations. He doesn't need pastel graphics or cheesy slogans. He's drawn to the untranslated, the unpolished, the unapologetic. A cryptic sigil carved into stone speaks more to him than 1,000 TED Talks. A rusted helmet or ancient war banner says more about consequence and honor than any trending podcast ever could. And it's not about style, it's about energy. These symbols carry legacy. They command. They endure. And every time he sees one, it confirms what the code already tells him: real power doesn't explain itself, it persists. Number 11, they enter cognitive isolation chambers to purge external programming. When the Sigma code activates, silence isn't just a luxury, it becomes a ritual. Not a casual break from noise, but a surgical operation to purge. Sigma males enter what can only be described as cognitive isolation chambers, deliberate mental vacuums where the only voice left is their own. No input. No feedback. No social interference. Just raw thought and ruthless introspection. To most people, isolation feels like loneliness. To a Sigma, it's clarity. These aren't moments of peace. These are strategic resets, times where he exits the polluted mainstream current and listens for his original code. It's not comfortable. It's not easy. It's a detox, mental, emotional, ideological. In this space, he begins to notice the parasites, opinions he never agreed to, fears he inherited, desires implanted by culture, beliefs shaped by systems that died long ago. And like a machine detecting foreign code, he starts deleting it, line by line, without mercy. These isolation chambers are where the Sigma's real power is forged. He strips away every external expectation, how to act, what to want, what to believe, until he's left with unfiltered instinct. He doesn't just find clarity. He reclaims authorship over his own perception. This is why the Sigma seems immune to peer pressure, to fads, to emotional trends. It's not arrogance, it's diagnostics. He's already dismantled every motive, questioned every belief, and rebuilt his mind from scratch. When he emerges, he's not refreshed. He's recalibrated. Grounded in self-generated clarity no one can install, or uninstall. That's what makes him unprogrammable. Not by culture. Not by guilt. Not even by love. In a world of echoes and emotional performance, the Sigma becomes the one man who speaks only from source code. Number 12, they decode patterns in human behavior like a hunter tracks prey. Sigma males aren't passive observers. They're decoders. When the ancient code activates, something primal awakens, something most modern men have lost. It's not psychological. It's instinctual. A raw, genetic ability to track human behavior like a lone predator stalking prey. Not by what people say, but by what they leak. Every micro-expression. Every contradiction. Every hesitation. Every shift in tone. The Sigma sees it all, not with effort, but with precision. While most are distracted by charm or performance, the Sigma zones in on motive. He doesn't need backstory to detect fear. He doesn't need an argument to spot control. It's all data, and he processes it silently, with sniper-level accuracy. This isn't about coldness. It's about survival. The Sigma is a lone wolf operating with ancient instincts. He doesn't enter rooms for validation. He enters like a tracker scanning the terrain. Who's posturing? Who's compensating? Who's manipulating? It's not personal. It's pattern recognition. Like wolves once studied herds, the Sigma studies human herds. Only now, the prey isn't just physical, it's psychological. He can sense power games before they're verbalized. He can detect desperation masked as generosity. He catches micromanipulation that others miss, and files it away silently. He doesn't need confrontation. He needs leverage. That's what makes him unnerving. You can't lie well around him. You can't fake confidence or pretend you don't want something. He sees the glitch in your pattern before you even know it's there. And the most terrifying part? He won't tell you. He'll just take note, and move on. This decoding ability makes him nearly immune to betrayal. It gives him an edge in business, in relationships, in strategy. While others are still figuring out what went wrong, the Sigma already saw it coming, 3 moves ago. Because he doesn't just see people. He reads them. Once this part of the code is active, nothing is random. Every human becomes a map. Every motive, a footprint. Every pattern, a trail. And the Sigma hunts with his eyes open. Always. Final words, the return to code. This code is ancient, not because it's old, but because it never died. Sigma males don't become powerful by chasing the world. They become powerful by remembering what the world made them forget. These traits, this awakening, it's not a trend. It's a return. A visceral homecoming to instincts buried under social noise, cultural sedation, and emotional pollution. The Sigma doesn't try to be different. He removes everything false until only the real remains. That's what the ancient code demands. No performance. No pandering. No passive existence. It drags him out of sleep and forces him to confront the uncomfortable, his shadow, his mortality, his deepest urges, and his disgust for everything weakly constructed. And that's the paradox. The Sigma doesn't need followers. He doesn't seek applause. But the world watches him anyway. Why? Because while most are busy becoming something, he's busy remembering who they were before the noise began. Where others conform, he disconnects. Where others hesitate, he acts. Where others surrender, he dominates, internally. He trains in reverse, weaponizes silence, dismantles illusions, and hunts for truth like a predator moving through a world of lies. And with every step closer to that truth, the code intensifies. He doesn't just feel power. He embodies it, quietly, ruthlessly, unapologetically. So no, this isn't just about being a Sigma male. This is about what happens when a man stops obeying artificial rules and starts activating the ones buried in his blood. The truth is, the code doesn't make him who he is. It reveals who he was always meant to be. If this awakens something deep inside you, something you've always felt but never had words for, then you're exactly the kind of mind we built this for. Don't just watch, join the movement. Subscribe to never miss content that cuts through the noise. Like if it lit a fire in you. Comment and tell us which part hit hardest, we read every one. And if you know a brother who's quietly built different, share this with him. This isn't a trend. This is a signal. And if you felt it, you're already part of the code. Stay sharp. Stay silent. Stay dangerous.